Sebated water. The check is in the mail. Good morning, everyone. Or evening, as the case may be, wherever you are in the world. Got a bit of show and tell today to start off the stream. Since my stream actually went for 2 hours last week, I thought I would start a bit early and maybe even go 3 hours today. Hey, Matt. Okay, so first of all, I got the Strongholds and Followers book that I backed Matt Colville Kickstarter for. So I'm looking forward to reading that. It's a lavish book. I wasn't expecting it, actually, to have a jacket cover. But I quite like the plain black, well, it's a glossy black with imprinted thing. Really well made book. This is a book like they used to make, and it's got a page marker. Isn't that nice? Look at the artwork and stuff in this book. Oh, that is really nice. All glossy. And yeah, really good. Really good. So I'm very much looking forward to... there's one of the... this is the Throne Angel. Traditional style Throne Angel. Which I think I actually prefer to the angelic angel. You know, the winged, feathered chaps. So I'm really looking forward to reading that. And I also got, because I'm completing my collection of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons books, 2nd edition, I got the Book of Artifacts, which I highly recommend everybody get, because it's got a lot of the real classic ones, Rod of Seven Parts, Sword of Cass, Orb of Dragonkind. This is where they all find their appearance. Beautiful book. Some lovely artwork. There's somebody who looks like they're raiding a giant bird nest. But you can see the dramatic difference between D&D books these days and D&D books back in this day. There's like black and white art and lots of text, but well laid out. Next, now this is this what I'm thinking of? I think so. Yeah, so I got this book from Amazon, from one of their affiliated stores, and got it sent over. And it's arrived in absolutely perfect condition, so much so that when I opened this up, it's got that telltale sort of creak. It's got no discoloration on the pages whatsoever. It's in absolute mint condition, like it had never been opened before. And then when I flipped to the forward, and because there's two forwards, there's one from Steve Winter and there's one from David Zeb Cook, and then I noticed that it's signed by both of them. And this didn't cost me the earth. So I'm thinking whoever put this up for sale, or whoever was selling it, didn't actually notice that this was a pristine, signed Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition Dungeons Master's Guide. Oh, so super stoked about that. That is beautiful. And it's made its way all the way to New Zealand. How's that? Okay, next, this big wad of books here. Here's my my DM's challenge to you. Can you hold all of the Kobold Press Midgard game books in one hand? The Mighty Glue Stick Challenge. So we've got the massive, hefty Midgard World Book. And we've got the Zobek Gazetta, talking about the city of Zobek, which is one of the major cities in the setting. We've got the Margrave's Player's Guide and Tales from the Old Margrave, which is a big forest realm in the setting. Then we've got the Creature Codex Lairs, which is the companion to the Creatures Codex Monster Manual. We've got Unlikely Heroes, which is a collection of different character classes that you can have, or character races. And Midgard Heroes, which is the first one, I think, in that series. Just thin, sort of, but nice, soft cover. And then we've got the Midgard Heroes Handbook, which is kind of like their player's handbook for the setting as well. So I got the whole kit and caboodle. So I'll let you know what I think of those, since I bought them myself. I didn't get none of these are promotional copies, or I never get sent any promotional copies of anything, so yeah, I'll let you know. Hey Loki, how did I get that? I just got it through Amazon. I just ordered a book and it was a signed copy from both of the authors. How amazing is that? Like, fate, call it karma, call it what you will, but it's made its way to me. By many times, yeah, I am literally a scholar, so it is my profession to get books. Hey, hey Jim, I stream every weekend around this time, either now or an hour later usually, but I'm going to have an extra long stream today. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous book. So lucky. You're not working and you're here, Beard Bear. It's true. I'm not streaming a day before, am I? It's Sunday, isn't it? It's Saturday. I'm not supposed to be streaming today. I'm ahead of schedule. I got all confused because I did 3 videos already. I'll let you in a little secret. I've actually been doing like night hours lately. In the dead of winter, it's been really stormy, and I've been sleeping during the day and staying up all night and making videos and stuff. So my schedule is all out of the whack anyway. So bonus stream today. Okay. Well, okay. I guess I won't be streaming tomorrow then. I'll just make more videos. How's that? My bad. Well, we'll see how many people show up today. We've got 40, 46, 47 so far. Hey, Bob. I see a lot of you that I recognise from the comments section, and I don't normally see you in the live stream, so maybe it's good that I'm doing it a day early. Hey, Ruben. You thought it was Friday, yeah. It's still Friday. Nocturnal life is nice if you can do it, yeah, but I do miss the sunshine. What constitutes winter in New Zealand? Well, you may possibly be able to hear it in the background. It's very wintry out there at the moment. We've got a big dump of snow which is hitting the mountains at the moment. There's no snow in the lowlands. We don't get snow down here, but yeah, if it gets really, really cold, we may actually have snow dusting over the entire island. I mean, we don't know these days, really, what happens with the weather. But it doesn't get particularly cold. Like, it's not below 0 here at the moment. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning it, Janchevik. Yeah, so the last video that I put out was talking about science fantasy and how the history of science fantasy in Dungeons & Dragons, and how it's really been consistent through the entire history of the game that science fiction elements are included in the sword and sorcery fantasy of Dungeons & Dragons, so that it's actually really been science fantasy the entire time. You have settings which are more sort of less science fantasy, and I guess Greyhawk would probably be one of the more mundane settings in that regard. Mystara is probably one of the more science fantasy ones out of them. Forgotten Realms a little bit less so, but that still is. Forgotten Realms was very heavily involved in Wildspace and Spelljammer, so yeah, everything's been touched on it a bit. No snow in winter. Well, we have snow where it's supposed to go, on top of mountains, so people can ski on it. But otherwise, it minds its own business and stays in the highlands. True, Null Void. Well, Quentin, I'm not on time, so... You still got a copy of Expedition to the Barrier Peak? I don't actually have a copy of that. I have read it, though. And it's kind of interesting because, like, some of the older ones are really just a nature crawl. So they give you this big hexadecimal map, or hex graph map of a wilderness, and essentially you just fill in the blanks. You just go. You just explore. And there's points here and there of places to explore, but really they didn't structure. They either totally railroaded you or didn't railroad you at all in the early adventures. So it was really interesting, and you don't really know what you're going to get into when you open up one of those old adventures, because they were quite different from each other. There's a much more homogeneous design guide way of doing things these days. So if you don't like published adventures these days, you're kind of out of luck, because it's going to be hard to find an official published adventure which doesn't follow the same sort of formula. That's where the homebrew stuff and the Dungeon Masters Guild and third-party publishers really come in handy. Case in point, Midgard and the Midgard setting, and how it's completely different to any of the other settings in Dungeons and Dragons. Hey Stardust Soul, thanks for streaming today. Me and Fazil had a shit day and needed your conversation to give it a good ending. Oh, that's good. Well, that's nice to hear. Glad I can bring a bit of happiness. Preaching to the choir. Yeah, I know. We are in an echo chamber after all. George R.R. Martin did a little rant in one of his short storybooks where he doesn't enjoy the labels of genre. True. Yep. I can see that. Oh, here's another thing that I got as well. This is a nice little... I'll just share some more of my little toys that I got from Amazon. So a while ago I got the Arcane Note, which is this fantastic leather DM's binder, essentially. And it's got this. I love this DM screen so much. This little itty-bitty fold-out DM screen. I've never really been big on DM screens, and now I know why, because they all got in the way of everything I used to do. And it's got a little footage measuring thing that you can just pull out, and it's got all of the actions on the first little page here. It's a ring binder, so you can rearrange everything that you need, and you can just leave all your notes and stuff in there. And it's got condition cards and things in the back as well. And the leather has held up really well so far, and I use it all the time. But I wanted some other stuff to sort of go with it as a companion. And I really like the dice rolling tray that Arcane Note gave me as well. I ordered from their Kickstarter. But this was at the beginning of the trend of the snap together things. But then I saw Acquisitions Incorporated had a bigger sort of one like that, and I thought that's really nice, lovely colour. And I also got a dice set to go with it as well, and this is the first legit set of metal dice that I've ever had. They're a bit smaller than usual, but they're really pretty, and they're really heavy. And that D4 is lethal. If I had a handful of those, man, I would scatter them behind me as I was being chased by New York muggers, and they would be powerless, because those things are lethal. They would go straight. They would make a really bad job of your foot. But listen, that's a satisfying clunk. I also got this little bookie thing here, which is a leather cover over top of some recycled paper, which is really cool because it's got like little bits of silver and masking tape and stuff stuck all through it. But I'm going to fill that up full of notes for a campaign that I'm going to be writing this year, and sharing with my patrons as I do so, because I really want to make a really mind-boggling campaign that really just blows your noodle, combining some stuff in the secret video for the patrons as well as other stuff that I've been hinting at in the and not talking about in the cosmic videos that I've been talking about over the last year. Howdy from Montana, or howdy to Montana, I should say. Kirin video. What kind of dragons do I like the most? Ones that don't try to eat people, generally speaking. A Friday stream, I know, it's totally a mistake. I didn't realise that it was actually Saturday. I thought it was Sunday. I got all messed up. I've been so busy making videos that I've lost track of the days. It's like, how hard do you work, AJ? Well, sometimes I forget what day it is. Yeah, Yes, dragons. So the dragons that I use most often in my campaigns as evil dragons are white dragons and black dragons. I find them the most straightforward, and player characters have no problem killing either of them because they know the black dragons are absolutely irredeemable bastards, and they know that the white dragons are aggressive animalistic predators, so they have no problem killing either. They very rarely involve themselves with blue dragons or green dragons because they are secretive and they kind of avoid getting in the face of player characters. No cheese. No more cheese. If a monk has mage armor cast on them, do they still benefit from the dexterity and wisdom for their armor class? I think so. I don't see why they wouldn't. I don't know. I'm not really a rules guru. Somebody else can probably answer that. Hey, thanks, Oakley Sumro. Oh, yeah, that's right. Greed Dragon would like to remind you that this is a monetized stream and super chats are enabled. Hi, AJ. Good to see you. Live stream again. Watching replays don't have the same real-time feel. Yeah, true. You get to ask me questions directly. Tiny DM screen from Gnomish DMs, yeah. Do you have a go-to site for dice and accessories? Tricky question. I'd recommend actually buying them from Amazon. I bought those from Amazon. They're a really good deal. They're fantastic quality. Like their, what do you call that? Enameling is top notch. Like the quality control on these dice is fantastic, and I've rolled them all extensively, and the balance is perfect. You can't go wrong with balance on metal dice because they're solid metal. You can have balance issues when you have multicolored dice that are opaque. So clear dice that you can see through, you can see if there's any bubbles and stuff in there. But the opaque dice, occasionally they pack powder into a mold and then they heat it up, and occasionally they'll just heat up the outside. They won't completely cook through the inside as well, and you end up with an unbalanced dice. And the only way you can detect that is to float them in a saline solution where the balance, so the neutral buoyancy. So you have to put a heap of salt in some water and then drop the dice in there, and then if it keeps coming up on the same numbers, you'll know that it's imbalanced because there's air bubbles in there or something, and then you basically just have to throw the dice away, which I did for 3 of my favorite dice. But metal dice, no problem, and clear dice, no problem. Chessex dice, you'll never have balance problems. So yeah, so Chessex and metal dice, and if you're a person who lives in the southern hemisphere like me, who has a free trade agreement with China, then you can import really, really cheap dice from China. Yeah, I might even buy a big bulk of them at some point and just give them away to people. A stream without cheese. Yeah, no more cheese, I'm afraid. I know it's throwing away perfectly good brand image, but yeah, I can't eat cheese every time. Also, I ate cheese on toast. I grilled cheese sandwiches last night, so I'm cheesed out already. Era, yeah, definitely were-rats. Were-rats and zombies. Zombie were-rats. So one of the things I liked about were-creatures is the fact that the curse can persist after death, and I don't think that's something that they've included in Dungeons & Dragons as an option. But there's classic monsters, like the idea of a zombie bite being transmittable and turning other people into a zombie is something that you rarely ever see in Dungeons & Dragons because that's not traditional D&D zombies. But it's really great for an undead plague campaign. Also, were-creatures that rise up on a full moon, whether they're dead or alive, because the curse hasn't been lifted, is a great thing as well. So it's were-lycanthrope. It's were-undead, essentially. So they're dead for the rest of the month, but on the week of the full moon, or on the nights of the full moon, they actually rise from the grave. Wildspace. Yeah, the cheese age, the cheese era ended 3 or 4 streams ago, that's true. Workshop makes some of the best dice around. Good to know. Absolutely. I do encourage everybody to go to the Discord server, and if you have any requirement for a special sort of chat board tab or something that you need the admins and me to open up for you, like if you want to share pictures of products or product reviews or specials or special bargains and deals, if anybody is a retailer and wants to offer discounts and stuff to people, that's a really good way of marketing. Just join a community, and the more the merrier. Essentially, the more people that join the community, the more that it will gain some sort of notoriety for a place where people can find other people to game with. Discord is actually a medium that you can video game, live stream with people over the Discord, which is exactly what I do every Tuesday, and I never have any problem with it. Are you going to go over the giant space hamster in the stream? No, I'm not. I've got to actually read up on giant hamsters, to be honest. So I don't like talking about things unless I know what I'm talking about. I had a lovely little conversation with somebody because I usually link my videos on Facebook groups, and one of the comments was somebody who's like, "Oh, I'm not interested in science fiction, like Dungeons and Dragons isn't science fiction, blah blah blah." I was like, "Have you watched the video?" And then he says, "No, I didn't watch the video at all." And then he said, "I know what it's not. I'm not interested in what it's like. It's not worth watching." I'm like, "Well, you know, you have your right to have an opinion, but people would pay more attention to your opinion if you actually researched, you know, if they knew you actually looked into what your opinion was based on." Oh well. Cockroach Demon, yes. Also, I saw a listing for, where is that? Where did I put that? So I did actually intend to make a video on giant slugs last week. I guess I'll make one tomorrow. And there's also a creature called a cockroach tree. So this is a cockroach tree is one of the few plants capable of growing even in the most blighted magical wasteland. It doesn't need water or even sunlight to survive, so long as it holds a reservoir of blood. It grows no leaves on its twisted branches, instead forming dozens of chattering, twitching seed roaches. These seed roaches are disgorged when the tree has access to water, sun, or blood, such as that of a creature killed near its roots. A seed roach has a lifespan of 6 months after being released from its tree and can survive on only a minimal amount of water. Few creatures can stand to eat seed roaches, but ghouls seem to appreciate their flavour. Seed roaches are not especially particular about their hosts, although they seem to show a peculiar affinity to humanoid victims, of course. When a seed roach bites, it injects a small but rapidly growing seed, which swiftly begins converting its host into plant matter. By the time the unfortunate creature is rendered immobile, it's entirely plant matter except for a central hollow, which fills with the remainder of the creature's blood. The new cockroach tree takes root and begins to produce seed roaches. Within 3 months, the sapling has grown seed roach buds, and the cycle begins anew. How disgusting! So it's basically like those, what do you call it? The fungus that makes ants climb up trees and stuff. Cockroach people are real. Where can you find my homebrew content? Well, I produce homebrew videos, homebrew monsters in videos, so they're freely accessible on my YouTube channel. I don't actually publish any material per se. Not yet, anyway. At the moment, my writing is pretty much taken up by writing the scripts, because every video that I do is about 5 pages of densely filled script. Oh, now you should be able to hear that rain over the microphone. It's hosing down outside. Yeah, it's so nasty. Yeah, like, there are so many horrible things that the writers of Dungeons and Dragons came up with. This is from Dragon Magazine number 355, and that's the seed roach is immediately before the lore of the giant slug. I just printed out on the page that includes the giant slug, and giant slugs are actually pretty formidable. There's also a PDF that you can get of giant slugs converted for 5th edition, including like various life stages or growth stages of the giant slug, so different CRs of giant slug on the DM's Guild, which I'll be reviewing as part of that video. Nice rain. Yeah, it's not nice if you're outside in it. It's pretty cold and wet. I'm not a I don't mind rain, honestly. Minnesota. Nice. Uncle Hugo's Science Fiction Bookstore. Hello to Uncle Hugo's Science Fiction Bookstore. A bug demon lord and Tome of Beast. Yeah, looks like a cockroachy thing. Maybe put homebrew materials in its own playlist. Is it not already? It's a good suggestion. I'll get onto that. Thanks. Hey, Seamus. 110 degrees in South Texas. No thanks. Giant slugs are flexible. They're rubbery. But they're easy to defeat if you can get behind them because they can't turn around. Apparently, in old D&D lore. Yeah, it's late winter here. Spring is on the way. I can feel it in my giblets. To kill a giant slug with salt, you'd need a large sack of salt. Don't forget, these creatures are tougher, bigger and tougher, so they're not as vulnerable to the salt thing as smaller slugs are, because it's hard to cover their surface area with it. And they have to be tough because they're travelling around in rocky dungeon terrain and through forests and things like that. Also, they exude an awful lot of acid. As hot as Asmodeus' Yahoo down here. Woohoo! Yeah, no thanks. I'll keep the rain. Salt Golem. That I would like to see. Salt Golem beating giant slugs. That's a match and a half. Yeah, so they've got quite a nasty bite, and they also exude slime, and they also spit acid. Yeah, the dragon that desiccates things with the breath weapon. That's the way to go. I've actually got another dragon to cover as well, the Amber Dragon. I just happened to have prepared it earlier. It's a neutral, vegetarian dragon. I thought this would interest people. Amber dragons are perhaps the most solitary and aloof of all the neutral dragons, preferring to wander through the heavily forested regions that they call home. And yeah, they're vegans. And they spray a breath weapon of scalding, sticky sap. So they are literally forest dragons. I thought you might find those interesting. Haven't done a dragon video. Yeah, haven't done a dragon video in a while. That's right, on the internet. Salt elementals, yep. That's when you really mess with players and you give them giant slugs from the elemental plane of salt. It's like, what are you going to do now? I hit it with water. Damn. Vegan dragons, yeah. Have I ever used the app MRPG? No, I haven't. I have not. I use, let's see, on my phone at the moment, the app that I put on all the time, is on all of my phones, is the Grand Grimoire, which is basically a spell book. And the D&D dice. And that's all the D&D stuff that I have on this phone at the moment. I only got it recently, but those are my go-tos. So D&D dice. Let's see. looks like this. Ta-da. Basically just rolls the dice for you. It's very gravity-ish. So can't actually show you without the dice rolling off the screen. And the Grand Grimoire is just a spellbook, essentially. So a list of spells, very easily searchable. Oh, it makes noise now. Wow. So it's got spells for Pathfinder 3.5 and 5e, and I think that's Werewolf or something. And it updates fairly frequently as well. And you can search by level, class, school, search by name, and it's got everything, all of the spells there listed for you. Thanks, Carla. You come from the plane of unobtainium. No, I have not been to the plane of unobtainium. I suspect it's part of the Earth elemental plane. Hey, Amy West. Long time no see. Yeah, it was nice music, wasn't it? Kind of epic. Vampire dragon templates. Chlorine gas elemental. Yeah, how much blood would a vampire dragon have to drain? The tricky thing with dragons is that they're sustained by elemental energies as well as organic energies. And quite often in the lore, dragons can eat anything. So being a vampire is quite hampering for a dragon because they would need a constant supply of blood. Whereas dragons can normally just eat every now and then sleep for ages. So a vampire dragon would be almost driven mad because its habit is completely conflicting with the urge to go out and get blood all the time. So that's quite tricky. So I imagine a vampire dragon would be compelled to create a large retinue of fanatical worshippers or feared slaves who have to go out in the countryside and get its victims and drag them back to its lair to be consumed. And then you've got the problem of do you rule that those consumed victims possibly turn into vampires themselves, in which case they're hungry too, so how do you get enough fanatical followers? I guess they'd have to be vampires too. So you got a vampire lord, draconic vampire lord of a massive clan of vampires. Can sword sages use magic? Not necessarily. I suppose anybody's got the capacity to use magic in Dungeons and Dragons because you've got a feat which allows you to learn arcane stuff. You can be an acolyte, you can be a young mage, or just somebody who dabbles, hedge wizardry. Have I heard of the Warlock Invisible Plague combo? No, I have not, Kajak. I'm spoiling your storyline. Well, you've given it away now. Have I ever tried playing Spelljammer? Yeah. Absolutely. You can watch some videos where I kind of play Spelljammer. I mean, they're in a spelljamming vessel. A bunch of Warforged. Are there any dragons that are native to the plane of Radiance? Yes, I believe so. I don't know if they're native to the plane of Radiance, but they can exist like radiant dragons are a thing. Is Monk Key considered magic? In 5th edition, no. It's because you've got key points, so it's separate from magic. It's not spell slots. It's more akin to psychic ability. You like the homebrew Witcher build online? I've tried. Played 5 minutes of The Witcher, the original Witcher, and that was it. Just didn't capture me. Because I had somebody say, "Oh, you've got to play the first one before you play the third one." That was a mistake. I should never have played it. I should have just gone to the third one. Third Witcher. Will I be doing a video for the various ships used in Spelljammer? I do talk about the helms in one video, but yeah, I should really go over the ships generally speaking, because there's a massive amount of ships. Like Spelljammer's thing was every supplement they came out with, there was more ships, more and more ships. And all the different factions have got different types of ships, like Beholder ships, Illithid ships, Lizard folk ships, the Skro, the Elves, the Neogi, all got different types of ships. Neat story, but seriously bogged down by the mechanics. Yeah, I don't know, I just couldn't get into The Witcher. Like, it was clunky. And I started playing Baldur's Gate, and I reached the city after getting out of the prison, and then I just sort of put it on the back burner, and I haven't gone back to it yet. Once a game sort of goes into wide open territory, and then there's like one location that you can find, but it's not like signposted, you've got to go looking for it, I just lose interest. And that's my downfall for Skyrim as well, because I just go wandering off on a tangent and go collect herbs for like 3 days. It's like, where was I supposed to go? What would? It's like, give me a direction to go in. Spelljammer ships come in different varieties. They have different types of drives. They have different types of crews. So, for instance, some of the ships run on the life force of a captured victim. I'm not going to read this Witcher book, Stanchgate. I've got enough other... I've working my way through the R.E. Salvatore series at the moment. I'm on book number... This is 10 in the series, so it's actually... I'll be 7, I think, books in, because I haven't got the first 3, because I was reading them in chronological order that he wrote them. And... yeah, this is The Passage to Dawn, which is... I don't know if you've read the entire Crystal Shard series, because it's kind of like the entire series of Drizzt is the Crystal Shard. In a way, because it sort of starts that way and then it goes back to that, and there's a big war in the middle. Yeah, big saga. You want Blizzard to remaster Warcraft 2? Oh, okay. Yeah, Baldur's Gate is a hard game. Neverwinter, yep. And Icewind Dale, yeah. Neverwinter and Icewind Dale. Icewind Dale was the first pretty game, I think, that I really played. The one where I went, ooh, wow, that's visually spectacular. And I also discovered that the ratio between pretty and story quite often it's a detrimental ratio. So it's either one or the other. Like, you can have a lot of story and it's not very pretty, or you can have it very pretty and not a lot of story. Diablo 3, perfect example. Diablo 2, huge story, much better game. I just wish Diablo 3 had the legs of Diablo 2, because with the Herodric Cube and all that sort of crafting stuff, you can just play Diablo 2 for months and months and months, and it never got boring. Do I know of Discworld? Yes, I know Discworld very well. Favorite PC race? Well, statistically speaking, I've probably played more gnomes than most people. Though I do prefer to just switch between them. I don't it's easier for me to say races that I don't play very often. I don't often play a half-orc. In fact, barely ever do I play a half-orc. I tend to play dwarves, gnomes, humans, and then sometimes a halfling or an elf, but rarely. And almost never play a half-elf. So yeah, there you go. I seem to have a preference. Yeah, Diablo 1 was basically just a big dungeon crawl. And Diablo 2 was a combination of dungeon crawls and running across the landscape. And Diablo 3 is landscape with dungeons. Like, yeah, doorways lead to mini dungeon. I think one of the best examples of that sort of game is Torchlight 1 and Torchlight 2. Highly recommend those. You can just play those games for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. But they do actually have an end. So and then you can go back and carry on playing, or you can play it over again with a different character class. Good Omens are also really good. I think there's only one Spelljammer vessel currently on Toril, officially. But you can find Spelljammer ports, per se, all over the place. There's essentially docking places where Spelljammer ships can touch down and recharge and stuff. But because Spelljammer vessels are quite often powered by the person who's piloting them, they don't really need a lot of things other than supplies. So food, water, and typically... they need air, so plants and things is a good idea as well. You'd play a Diablo clone set in the Forgotten Realms. Yeah. That would be neat. You still play Icewind Dale? Excellent. Yeah, Icewind Dale is quite shallow in terms of content compared to Baldur's Gate. Hey, Gadzooks. I know. Hurrah! Oh, Roderick Cube. From the ashes of Quillet, I've brewed for you a potion. Do I play the Planescape game? I include Planescape in almost every game that I play. So for me, Spelljammer and Planescape are not separate settings that I play. It's integrated intimately into the Dungeons and Dragons that I play. Funny you should mention that, Emiliano. I in the current campaign that I've been running on Tuesday with my friends, there's been very little world planning whatsoever. Like the worlds don't even we've visited 2 worlds so far. Neither one of them has a name. Like it's never come up. So the characters started off in one world, which was they've discovered that there's an invasion happening close to their village, and they were selected by this dubious process to go off and represent their village and fight whatever it was, or investigate whatever it was that was taking over these towers, which are former wizard towers. So long ago on this world there was some sort of cabal of wizards, and then in the course of events they went through a portal to another world where events are in motion that are tied into that invasion, and they've been following that track, and it's led them to a spiral of stones in the middle of a forest. Each one of the stones has a trapped demonic force of some kind, which was built long ago by wizards and directed the energy of the trapped demons to the wizard's tower to power a portal that allowed them to transport across the world to set locations. So I like that idea of like wizards have built something and then they've had a war amongst themselves or whatever, and their technology essentially is left behind. And there's these druids in the forest, a druid circle, who don't know the exact nature of what the stones are for, or why they're built there, or what's actually inside them, or any of that sort of thing. But they know that they need to maintain the forest because the natural energies of the forest channeled through those stones is actually keeping the demons suppressed. And then they are in conflict with a church in the local city because the church has redirected a river to build a fountain at the cathedral that was previously going into the forest, and because it's disrupted the water flow into the forest, it's actually damaging the magic which is sustaining the magic, keeping the demons in the stones, and everything's going tits up, and the adventurers have got involved. So yeah, I like that kind of interplay. It's like there's conflict because of just ordinary behaviors that people are doing. Like the druids are doing their thing, but they don't really know why they're keeping this balance. And once the druid that's with the player party finds out what the actual nature of the stones is, and the fact that it was built by these elven wizards for just trivial sort of purposes, he's quite angry about it. Quite angry. Does Spelljammer tie into the Expedition to the Barrier Peaks? Well, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks was written way before Spelljammer was. So Expedition to the Barrier Peaks was like back in the 70s sort of thing. Or no, 85. No, earlier than that. 76. Sorry. Oh, they've got a cube in Diablo 3. I didn't even know that. Speaking of half folks, are there any interesting, unusual half-bloods without a human parent? Well, you can have... That's a good point. Are all the half races half human? Yeah, I guess so. Hey, thanks, Chaos Duke. Here is money. Please talk about epic dragons, force, prismatic, etc. Any named ones you know about? If no named ones, your opinion on how they might interact with the prime or the gods in a place. Thanks. So epic dragons. Epic dragons are evolved in Dragon Affairs. In Forgotten Realms, it's an interesting situation because the dragons used to be the rulers of Elven society back when Elven society was at its apex, at its peak on the planet. There were kingdoms of elves that were ruled over by dragons. Other elves didn't like this so much and were independent of the dragons, but dragons were so influential because the dragons weren't forced to keep their distance from each other because of the thing that the elves did to them. So the elves got together and tied this massive spell in with this meteor or this comet that passed by, the King Killer Star, and it caused all the dragons on the planet of Toril to go crazy every now and then. The dragon rage, and that basically put the coffin nail in dragon society per se on the planet of Toril. So they splintered. So they'd already been severely hampered and weakened from the height of their civilization when they arrived from space on the planet of Toril. They wiped out the earliest civilizations, the creator races, the Eri and the Batrachi, and they became dominant, but they had to contend with the fact that there was another dominant invader race on the planet, which was the giants and the civilization of Astoria. So epic dragons have been alive for thousands and thousands of years, but the history and the fall of dragon society on Toril and various other worlds, and when you look at like the prime and the spheres and all that sort of stuff, it's incredibly complicated, and Toril is just one planet. So, and the gods are usually located on just one planet. They're kind of locked into those planets as well, but they have spheres of influence that if you look at the Spelljammer map, you could actually make a color-coded chart of where all the different spheres where Moradin has an influence, for instance. And it's a real eye-opener when you look at it that way. It's like, oh, okay, it's very complicated. I can see how this all works. Anyway, so Dragon Society was on the fall because they got involved in this genocidal warfare with the giants of Astoria, and both civilizations tore each other apart and fell. And all the other races were just like, whoa, and hiding out in caves and stuff, and ducking and diving, and essentially sticking with one faction or the other just to survive in this brutal warfare going on all over the planet and all over the different realms, parallel dimensions, etc. Shadowfell, Feywild, all tore up by this war. And then everything settled down, and essentially the elves started to take over. And the rise of the elven society. So elves had their empire, and then dwarves came up from deep below the ground and started to spread across the planet while the elves were being torn apart by this huge series of civil wars, the Crown Wars. And at the same time, the dragons went crazy, and then the humans, in the aftermath of the elven fall, who had been taught how to use magic by the elves, rose up in the most epic empire they'd ever had, which was Netheril. And it was a very unfair society where there was definite haves and have-nots. The people, the high-ups were literally high up in floating mountain cities, and dreadfully exploiting everyone who didn't have access to high magic. And that all came crashing down, and the world that we have now in the Forgotten Realms is really a post-apocalyptic world where Dragon Society has fallen, and it's just crawling its way back now because the Dragon Rage is over. It's ended. Sir Master ended it. But Sir Master also gave them some extra added clout with inventing the method of creating dragon liches. And we've got the Cult of the Dragon, which is going about, essentially, they believe that dragons are the superior life form, so they're working on a way to make sure that dragons actually take over the planet again. Because, as far as they're concerned, when dragons ruled over everybody, it was the good old days. And you've also got the rise of other civilizations as well, which is happening at the same time. But it seems to me that Bahamut and Tiamat are getting pretty feisty because they realise that their factions of dragons can work together again now. And so the dragons are starting to go, looking around and going, yeah, it's about time that we showed these uppity little humanoids what's what. So that's how I would run it. Thanks, Gadzooks. Hey, AJ, what would a typical temple to Groomsh look like, and how would it be populated other than Orc? How would you describe the ambience? Groomsh is an incredibly dominant god, and the other gods are justifiably fearful of Groomsh. He was the first god, I think, to kill another god, although Tempest was certainly pretty lethal in the wars of the gods as well. But Groomsh is a very domineering god. So I have to say, it's ultra patriarchal. So Groomsh believes that orcs essentially are a tough race, but he's got some pretty simple but brutal founding principles. And yeah, tough love, I suppose. If you went to a temple of Groomsh for healing, they might staple you back together again. I don't know. But yeah, Groomsh I don't think is highly interested in the worship of other creatures per se. He's not like Vaprak or even Moradin. Moradin's welcoming of the worship of other creatures, but Groomsh I think is very much interested in just orcs. So I don't know if there's a temple to Groomsh would get a lot of his blessing unless it was just all half orcs or predominantly half orcs, and he'd be kind of looking at them like, you're not the real deal. And the ambience would be very Klingon-ish, dark and smoky with drums and skins, and holy relics would be weapons that were bathed in the blood of enemies during wars and things. There'd be a lot of secret relics in the room, which are like elf skulls and stuff like that from orc conquests. Like, you can imagine there'd be a trade in holy relics, which are actually like quite taboo to have in a city of Waterdeep. It's like, oh yeah, this is the skull of an elven coronal. Yeah, see that? It was cleaved by the axe of Obold's great-great-grandfather. Yeah, kobolds and goblins don't get along particularly well. Hey, some guy, if I was designing my own unique magic system, how would it work? Okay. What I really like is magic that can be boosted, but carry a significant risk of mutating and driving a person crazy. So I like the idea of spell slots and the way it works generally, but I don't think spell slots should be completely cut off from being abused. Like, I love the idea, and this stems back to like Warhammer Fantasy and Fafnir and the Grey Mouser, and like the idea that wizards can they walk a tightrope, and also Dark Sun as well. They walk a tightrope where magic is unnatural, and channeling magic through your body can be highly dangerous. So the spells and the arcane teachings that they learn are really formulated and transcribed and passed on as safe methods to, in a limited way, utilize magic. But if you're a warlock or like a sorcerer or something like that, there's a chance, or a witch, there's a chance that you, like particularly with sorcerers, with warlocks, I mean, I guess it's kind of regulated by having it channeled through a supernatural entity and then through you. But with a sorcerer, that whole wild magic thing, I love the idea of a sorcerer that's like with the draconic ones, they overuse magic and they become more and more draconic to the point where they start becoming monstrous. Or the chaos mage, where they literally start to mutate. So if you roll on a random table for a random magical effect, some of those options on there should be you sprout a third eye somewhere. You know, you sprout a tentacle. I like that idea. So yeah, if I was designing a magic system, that would be far more integrated into it, so you could actually overcharge your magic and do that as well. Same thing with fighters. They could actually injure themselves for a significant period of time by like really overdoing it and going absolutely absolutely nuclear in a combat situation, but just being a mess afterwards. Or with clerics, for instance, they essentially get taken over by their faith, and they supercharge the magic of and healing and stuff of their god, but they kind of lose themselves at the same time. Like, they lose their free will a little bit because they've just given themselves over completely to visions and portents and stuff like that, and they become absolutely devoted and fanatical. And with, I guess I don't really have much for rogues, because rogues are a bit like that in the first place. I have so much D&D knowledge. Well, yeah, I make videos all the time. What can I say? Hey, Tony. Ancient Red Dragon versus Ancient Steel Dragon. Well, the Red Dragons are quite tough. So I'd say probably the Red Dragon in that situation. You said in previous video that Waterdeep had a Spelljammer port. What is this port like? Kind of like a bunker, like a submarine bunker. Imagine it like that. So it's like a silo. I don't think Piercer and Roper will be making any Spelljammer. They might do some Planescape stuff at some point, just accidentally. We do know in the Deep Underdark that phase verse energy and stuff can cause weird effects like dimensional portals to pop into existence. When will I video on Obold Many Arrows? I've had that request before, actually. It's on my to-do list. He is a very important figure in the far north of Faerun. Yeah, that's exactly Sinzu. Like with the Dark Sun, magic users using their life force or using the life force of other creatures. But I like the idea that it's corruptive. Like, I love the idea, and particularly in Discworld, the idea that there's an alternate dimension of demons very close by at all times, and they're scratching away at the surface trying to get in. And whenever you channel significant amounts of magic, it spongifies the barrier a little bit, and they're trying to push through. So occasionally they'll like get a little bit of demonic influence into the spellcaster, and it's real hard to get it out once it's in. It infects you like a weird radiation. Yeah, wizards study magic and sorcerers are naturally gifted. Cursed, you could say, because they have to use magic. It's like, I haven't used magic all day. Get it out of your system. Yeah, witches and warlocks are the same thing in D&D. No, hags are different. Yeah, sorry. Witches and warlocks, same thing. But hags are different. They're monsters. Have I read Dungeon Crawl Classics? Not really. I'm not really an OSR fan. I would prefer to go to the actual source and play AD&D itself. Spellburn, yeah, exactly. Temporary constitution damage to bonus, 4 bonuses to spell rolls. Yeah, constitution damage, like ability damage, it's they don't use it in 5th edition anymore because it was just too clunky, too complicated. Dungeons and note keeping. Charts and tables. Hey, thanks, Adrian. Thanks, I will enjoy it. Wizards have cool beards. Have you noticed how many of the creators of Dungeons and Dragons look like wizards now? Frank Menser, Ed Greenwood. Tim Kask. Is that right, Kenneth? I wouldn't say sorcerers are better because there's that lack of control, and also sorcerers tend to concentrate on certain types of spells, whereas wizards have a much greater utility, like a wider variety of spells by far than the sorcerers do. So sorcerers know how to cast spells, but wizards can learn spells. So yeah, at any time a wizard can transcribe a spell from a spell book they've found onto a scroll, or research a spell, whereas sorcerers are kind of limited to their magic output is really great, and it's just a matter of like getting up on their constitution and stuff, being able to cast spells using their charisma and things. But wizards have mastery of spells, much more so than sorcerers do, like meta magic feats and stuff. Wizards of the Coast, yeah. Yup Tub, that's a good question. Can I give an example of how to be flexible when dealing with players going off the rails of your story? So essentially, let them go and find a way of detaching the parts of your story, your plot, that actually direct the action and the way things go. And then when it's appropriate, and when the characters are doing something like they've reached a lull in the game, or they've reached a point where they're getting restless and they want to do something, then you orchestrate events and throw the encounter in there. And they do it, and then whoosh, they go off on a tangent again, wherever they want to go, and then you take the next encounter that advances the story, and you throw it into the mix again, and off they go. And essentially, they cannot disrupt it because they're driving the story. They're driving the action and adventure. You're essentially just placing the story into their activities as they go. So they can't derail it, because no matter which way they go, they're going to land on that adventure encounter eventually. What are my thoughts on Numenera? I like the idea of the players rolling all the dice and the DM just sitting back and telling the story. I'm not that keen on the setting of Numenera per se, although it's got some really great ideas. And I think that if you're ever stuck for inspiration, you should find one of those Numenera books and read up on like one of their encounters or something like that, and incorporate the fantastic ideas in that into your D&D repertoire. Thanks, Tony. Love your content, AJ. Because you and another talented DM that I'm now running my own campaign, and I know so much lore. That's excellent. I love to hear that. I'm so glad that I can inspire people to get back into playing D&D or playing the game for the first time. I wouldn't say I'm a wizard per se. I'm certainly a sage. And I am actually a professional scholar. I admit it now. I am a scholar. That's what I do. Where did the stream come from? Yeah. I thought it was Sunday. I got confused. My bad. Alan Moore must be a wizard. He has a wizard beard and does comic books. Yeah. Oh, I'd so love to draw. I'd love to do a Piercer and Roper comic book, or at least a web cartoon, a web comic strip. That'd be great. Do you think I could do it and do videos at the same time? I could give it a go. Maybe it won't impact my workload that much. I just wish there was like a GeoCities type setup, so you could just set up a website and upload a comic strip every week. That'd be great. Thanks, Stanchgate. I can't even answer the question. What's the weirdest thing you've had to look up? Okay. When I started researching the giant slug and was looking for artwork on the giant slug, I forgot to put on the safe search, and by all of the gods, I was not aware of how grossly kinky people could be with giant slugs on the internet. I've seen things that no bleach can remove from my mind. Is that what you meant? Something like that? Because that was gross, man. Hire somebody to offload your workload. That's the problem. There's nobody that I can really hire to do it. Yeah, YouTube and got like that's true. Hey Frederick. Yeah. Like my output on YouTube is already fairly high. So I don't really want to push it. And it is very tempting to do other little projects on the side as well, to collab with people, review their D&D encounters and campaigns, help them plan them and stuff like that. So yeah, you do have to pace yourself a little bit, and I still do have a pretty good output for a D&D channel. No, not even mental floss. What if slugs? I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shores of Orion. Shout out to Rutger Hauer. What a loss, man. So many great so many great movies. Like, one of my favourite movies of his, and now that I look back, it's dated horribly, was Salute to the Jugger. I remember watching that movie way back, and this is back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, when there were all those post-apocalyptic, like, filmed in Australian deserts because it's cheap sort of thing. So there's a lot of post-apocalyptic movies around that time. Time Bandits and yeah, that sort of stuff. Mad Max. Webtoons might be a good app to upload to. Thank you. See, this is why I ask people these questions, because everybody knows stuff. Thanks, man. I will mention you in my memoirs, Noah. What have you begun, Noah? What have you started? Years from now, people will blame you. Arcane beard of storage. That should be a thing. Don't kink shame. Oh, kink shame slug porn. Yeah, absolutely. Some things should not be. I mean, not for the sake of the individual, for the sake of the species. I mean, what happens when aliens invade and we have to hide all the cheese and like 50% of the internet? Just put it away immediately. We cannot show them the internet. Piercer and Roper fanfiction. Yeah, you got a good point. With the name like Piercer and Roper. Oh. Oh. What have I done? Blind Samurai. Was it Blind Fury? Yeah. So snails have got radula, which are essentially rasping discs. Yeah, the internet is off limits to the aliens. That's true. Oh yeah, you've got to go to the planet Earth, man. Have you seen their electronic network? They just put everything on there. Like, you can learn everything about that species, I'm telling you. It's like they just put their brain in an electronic medium. No, Kick-Ass Duke. Neuralizer. Mwah. Ooh, got a high-speed chase of some sort going on. Asgarath Io. Yeah, Io does have an alternate name. I don't know if it's still applicable. But he's both a dragon god and also just a general powerful god. Yeah, maybe that's why the aliens don't visit us. No, fighters don't get the shaft this current edition, Nicholas. I don't agree. Fighters are very capable, very diverse. Mind you, I'm kind of old school, so I include like barbarians in the fighter class in general. Yeah. Like, you can have a fighter who is essentially an archer, or a horse. You can have a cavalier, like weapons master. You can have a heavy weapons specialist. Fighters are very diverse, very customizable in 5th edition. The internet is our hive mind, it's true. Imagine the alien internet in Area 51. Hey Chase, I am waiting with bated breath to see how the invasion of Area 51 pans out, whether that actually happens or not. Is the Piesta and Rota comic just them killing and eating a random adventure every issue? No, it's a ongoing saga in the city of Menzoberranzan, but not the current day Menzoberranzan. This is a futuristic Menzoberranzan where the elves are actually fallen on hard times and the city has been taken over by monstrous races. And there's like traffic on the streets and stuff, but it's not like cars. The only car in existence in Menzoberranzan is I think it's a Ford that belongs to Piesta and Roper. And everything else is like carts and weird creatures. Hey Justin, thank you. Do you plan to revisit videos to give them updates? Absolutely, I have already done a couple of updates already. I've updated the Angel video and I've updated one of the Dragon videos. So, yep, more to come. I got a good response from those, so that encourages me to do it more and more. Last stream you mentioned a primordial can... I didn't say they cannot ascend to godhood. I just said why would they bother? So primordials can become gods. Don't forget, it's only like AO only really has jurisdiction over realm space and the planet of Tyrol. So primordials can simply just go to another sphere of existence and ascend to godhood there if they want to. They're not limited to the one sphere of existence like the gods are. So being a god kind of sucks in some ways from a primordial's point of view. They're free. They can do whatever they want. Yeah, primordials come from a time when they're... So the big difference between primordials and gods is gods are astral entities and primordials are not, generally speaking. Hey, thanks, Larry. Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed the Realm Space video. Yeah, I was a bit worried about that one because it didn't get a lot of traction. The last video that I uploaded has got a lot of commentary from people already. It's quite a talking point. Am I actually Mordenkainen in disguise? When the likely time frame for monsters from the Toma Beast from Kobold Press? Well, as I mentioned at the start of this video, I have a lot of reading to do because this is all of the background source material for the Toma Beast and the Creature Codex. So before I do videos on those, I really want to read up at least this book here on their background and how they're properly used in the setting of that game, so that I can talk about them there, how they were intended to be used in that background, and also how they can integrate very nicely into 5th edition and whatever setting, particularly for Forgotten Realms. Io and Asgarath, I think they're still gods, yes. I don't think they're primordials. Yeah, people don't have to include time travel in their campaigns, Adrian. You're absolutely right. I just disagree with them saying that it's not supported in the lore. It absolutely is. But I'm just saying that just because it's in the lore of the game doesn't mean that it has to be in your campaign. No way. It's just a resource that you can use. And for people who want to play the lore as written per se, that's why I'm here making videos about it. That I check it accurately and stuff. I'm not telling people that's how they should play their game. I'm just saying that the Forgotten Realms is a fantastic resource. Mystara is a fantastic resource. All of these different settings that you can use are fantastic resources with rich bodies of lore. If you've just finished reading all of the Dragonlance books, of course you want to play Dragonlance as it was intended. So you'll want to follow the lore of the game and run an actual legit Dragonlance type campaign on the world of Krynn. Oh, I'm out of coffee. I'll drink some water instead. I've had this water bottle for about 2 years. Just keep refilling it. What am I missing in that comment there, Tigbutt? A beer? Froghemoth, yeah, absolutely. What would happen if you drank abyssal demon blood and survived and then became a vampire sometime later? Demons don't have blood, typically. They've got ichor. And it would be virulently toxic. Oh yeah, the parallel world on the other side of the star is called a beer. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing where I'm talking about like primordials and gods and the fact that gods can time travel and stuff. Time travel exists, so the question of what came first becomes kind of meaningless. Like in the universe, like let's say time travel is possible, and I'm the first creature that pops into existence in the phlogiston, and I say, let there be a sphere, and I'm going to put inside it a star and some planets and stuff, and I'm going to, no, I don't like that, and I just crush it up and make another one and another one. And then at some point along came gods and said, no, stop destroying things. We like these things the way they are. And they're like, all right, I'll go somewhere else in the phlogiston and do something else. Did the gods... Where did the gods come from? The gods came from the future when life forms existed in this planet. And they thought about stuff and created astral entities, and then the astral entities became gods, and then the astral entities went, magic! And then they went back in time and they went, hey, don't destroy this planet because in the future things will exist that think me into existence. That's why time travel is complicated. Do I have plans on an A Bear video? Maybe. Hands up how many people have run a campaign in A Bear. Be honest, it's for science. How many people are actually really that interested in a working knowledge of A Bear because they may take their game legitimately there? Fizzban. Joe Cat's Wizard Guide. Somebody put a link to that in the Discord, please. The Demogorgon video. You're most welcome. My most popular video. The video I'm most proud of, I think. Yeah, your character's dead if they've eaten a lot of demon ichor. So yeah, as you can see, A Bear doesn't feature very highly on. It doesn't pop up on people's radar very much. What's A Bear? Yeah, the gods don't know what created the phlogiston, and they don't know what created the spheres. So we have no idea where the spheres came from. A beer. Is there an alternate way of pronouncing a beer? A buyer? A beer. A beer. Who knows? How would Ed Greenwood say it? A beer. Toriel. Eber. Demogorgon versus Asmodeus. Who would win? Asmodeus would be too smart to get into that fight. Because Asmodeus would realize that the harder you fight against Demogorgon, the more powerful he becomes. So Asmodeus would win by backing off and reducing Demogorgon's power. Or Asmodeus would win by playing both heads against each other. He would distract Demogorgon. Correction. Last stream you mentioned a primordial may not ascend to godhood and instead just make a god of them. Make a god of them. Oh, I'm saying that so a primordial may be made a god by Ao, for instance. Like if a primordial really wanted to be a god, per se. But the war between the primordials, like the forces of chaos and the forces of law, a lot of the primordials are chaotic, but not always so. Primordials it's an incredibly diverse group of different creatures and entities. So you're asking me general questions for... you're asking for a general answer where all primordials require specific circumstances, if that makes sense. It's like saying, can all cats learn how to play fetch? It's like, well, specific cats can be taught how to play fetch, but most cats, don't play fetch. If you throw a stick, they'll just look at you. Or not even. Dogs, on the other hand, much more likely to fetch a stick because they're triggered by things getting thrown and moving and chasing things. Birthright, right. With time travel, the sphere builders may not exist yet. See, that's a perfect point there, Michael. Maybe the gods don't know who created the spheres because they haven't evolved yet. How would Jordan pronounce it? Beholder. IPA. Yeah, stout or ale, thank you. I'm not thirsty. I want a beer. Jeez. For marketing purposes, I recommend finding a cheese replacement. Uniqueness is always good. Well, like, I'm showing you lots of books and stuff. Whatever. What else could I do? I don't know. I'm not a Twitch streamer. I don't have to give you gimmicks. Yeah, so I've seen a statistic that it takes 13 times or 13 as much training to teach a cat a trick, the same trick that a dog will learn. Because cats have got self-respect. Cats are not pathetic, needy slaves. Cats do enjoy our company, though. This has been scientifically proven. They do actually miss you when you go. Even if they seem like they're not paying any attention to you, it's because cats... when a cat focuses its attention on something, or when you focus your attention on a cat, like if you're staring at a cat, it feels threatened because they stare at things when they're hunting them. So when you see cats approach each other and they're threatening each other, they look directly at each other. Whereas cats that are comfortable with each other's company look away from each other. So when a cat smiles, it goes like this. That's a cat smile. Squints and looks away. That's the equivalent of us going, Hey, buddy. New Zealand food and recipes. Why is the cheese gone? Because eating too much cheese is not good for a middle-aged man's heart. That's why. Perhaps if I guzzled buckets of wine, I would probably be fine. But unfortunately, can't drink wine because of the sulfites. You love the Midgard Heroes Handbook? Well, that's encouraging because I'm going to be reading that soon. So far, so good. Like, I'm only a little bit into the... Like, you can see how far I've made it through this book so far. And that's reading a couple of pages every morning. Exactly. See, your cat does get depressed when you go on vacation. They do actually like us. Oh, here's something. I actually do plan on getting a cat. It's been too long. I've been living in a city, in flats and stuff when they didn't allow me to have a cat, and now I live out in the country and I've got my own place and I don't have any flatmates living here, so I am going to get a cat. And I'm finally convinced, I'm going to get a cat. Drake. Oh, there's actually a temporal blink dog. There's actually a time blink dog. So I was going to bring you a video on some temporal creatures as well. Salami. God, no. Salami's even worse. You don't want me to have a coronary on stream, do you? I appreciate your questions on the gods, Dragon Turtle, but I'm just not interested in talking about gods right now. Exactly. If I get a cat, I mean, cats, right? Can't go wrong with cats on the internet. Okay, I'm not anti-dog, but years ago, I did get a dog. His name was Ben, and he was a Jack Russell puppy, and he died horribly of a genetic birth defect of his heart, and I had to stay up with him all night while he was struggling to breathe and coughing up blood, and it just broke my heart into little pieces. So no, I'm not going to be getting a dog ever again. So yeah, sorry to be a downer, but that was brutal, and yeah, I'll never forget how I felt. Cats, on the other hand, lovely. Pound cake and bacon. Oh, it's okay, Dragon Turtle. It's just yeah. Cats and dogs. A temporal cat familiar. Yeah, so I definitely understand how people feel about dogs, and also I do sympathise with people who have lost dogs and stuff like that, because they do. It's a different relationship between a cat and a dog, you know. Don't worry, it was years ago. I'm over it. It's okay. Have I looked into getting strongholds and followers? Funny you should mention that, because I just happen to have it right here. Where did I put it? Here it is. Strongholds and followers. One thing I noticed, it doesn't have Matt Colville's name on the cover. How low ego is that guy? Honestly, I would have put my name right across the cover on there. But nope. I love his forward though. Like, gives credit to everybody. Thanks to Mike Mills, Chris Perkins, Jeremy Crawford, and the rest of the 5e dev team for synthesizing 40 years of RPG design into something new and fresh and fun to play and fun to design for. Couldn't have said it better myself. Alright, everybody. I'm going to cut a track. Get on with my unexpected Saturday. Oh, Dragon Turtle. If you had to compare D&D to different sci-fi universes... Sorry, I lost your comment there. Star Wars, Star Trek, Warhammer 40k, Halo, Stargate, Mass Effect, etc. How would you rank it in terms of power? Star Wars is definitely science fantasy because it's wizards and laser swords in space. And there's something unusual about the space of Star Wars because you can hear sounds through space. Not only like there's instances where there's people down on the planet below and they hear ships arriving out of hyperspace in orbit and stuff. So also Princess Leia, when the ship exploded and she floated through space, spoilers, she floated through space, she didn't die. So the space of the galaxy far away that Star Wars takes place in is not the same as our Milky Way galaxy and our vacuum of space. So it's almost like space in Star Wars has an atmosphere. So yeah, it's more fantasy than I think most people realize. And it's definitely modeled on the sagas, like, you know, Stargate is basically more mundane. Like, it doesn't have magic per se, it's got high technology, but with the Goa'uld, for instance, they masquerade as being magical, as being godlike, by using their technology to awe lesser creatures, and they want to keep everybody suppressed. So they want to seem godlike, but they're otherwise actually just nasty parasitic organisms that have very extended lifespans. Probably the most amazing thing there is like their regeneration ability and things like that, and the sort of sapping of life force and things, and just using wormholes in general. That's high technology through strange materials. So it's Planescape without magic per se. Star Trek, well, we already covered that in the last video. Pretty amazing, very high technology. No magic per se, although you've got entities like the Q and the Q continuum. So essentially Q is a extra dimensional being, like he's a fifth dimensional being that exists in various points and places in time, and he's outside of the universe and he just enters into it when he wants to. And he also exists eternally, so the universe to him is just a length of rope that he can move around on. So essentially all the different instances of Q that are in the show is the same entity. He's just taking on different roles and interacting with himself out of sheer boredom. So the Q continuum is the continuum of Q, if you understand. He's an extra dimensional being, so he's way up above. Like, this is the universe, and Q is just going, I want to go here and here and here and here and here, and he just does it again and again and again and again, going back and forth from the start of time to the end of time. And at one point he says, why don't you just change the gravitational state of the universe? So he's literally, he can do this to the universe and turn it up and down. So he's literally a godlike being to the denizens of Dungeons and Dragons. But he makes sense according to the physics of, you know, stuff. So yeah, good question. Yeah, so Q is very interesting. And Q, along with various other aspects that Gene Roddenberry wrote into it. So through his writing of Star Trek, if you're really paying attention, Gene Roddenberry was having an argument with religion. So he was examining the concept of God in Star Trek in various parts and places. And Q, in Second Generation, where he was still involved in it, is very much that conversation, where Picard is literally having a conversation with a greater entity and saying, look, you've got all this power, why don't you fix things, and stuff like that. And Q was saying, it's more complicated than that, I'm dealing with things on a much greater level than you can understand. So when the Q Continuum had a war and Q was having a fight with himself, essentially, he was using star systems and things as weapons. So he was detonating star systems and stuff, because the universe, from his perspective, is both tiny and infinite. It is deep. Yeah, so Gene Roddenberry, he was a fan. So it is very early on. So his dad was a policeman, and Gene Roddenberry was born in, I think it was 1921. And when he was a young man, he liked reading E. Doc Smith's Skylark series, which I also love. I love those books. Edgar Rice Burroughs' Mars series, John Carter of Mars, and other sort of sci-fi fantasy stuff as well. So that was on his mind. He then became an aircraft engineer and a pilot, and had some really amazing escapades as a pilot. And he was an air crash investigator for a long time, and he was a pilot for Pan Am. Had an air crash where he broke a couple of his ribs, and then he rescued all these people in this crash that actually a lot of people died in. And then he took them out of the desert and rescued them all. Heroic dude. He was the MVP, man. He was a real dude. And then he ended up writing for television. I think his goal was to write westerns and stuff, but sci-fi came around. And because westerns were so big on television at the time, Star Trek was kind of like all the film crews and stuff were used to filming westerns. And in westerns, you have squads of cowboys who go and deal with shit. So the Star Trek away team is like a posse, essentially, that goes down to the planet, and there's a couple of them always going to die. It's like the ranch hand, the red shirts. Who was that? Rogers! He was a good man. What happened to him? I don't know. It looks like all the salt's been drained out of his body. Well, shit. So, yeah. I really like it. They go down, got the guns, communicator in one hand, pistol in the other. Yeah, Q had a child. How weird is that? It's like, have a child with myself? I suppose so. Yeah, Joss. So Joss's real strength was his dialogue. He really understood creating characters, creating relationships on that sort of long play formula. He knew damn well that people would be binge watching those shows, and he had long storylines where they developed their relationships and stuff. Case in point, Spike and Buffy Vampire Slayer. I remember when the first episode of Buffy Vampire Slayer came out, I just couldn't take it seriously because the name of the show was like, what? It's like a vampire killing cheerleader. Great. I had no idea who Joss Whedon was and what that show was. And then years later, I was singing along to the musical episode. Let me rest in peace. Oh, you mean what would happen if they interacted? What would happen if a Warhammer 40k crusade entered the prime material plane? Okay, so imagine a squad of space marines. Let's say Toril let's say the phlogiston is actually the warp, okay? And it spits out Toril into the universe of Warhammer 40k, and it's been lost for a very long time. It turns out that elves and dwarves and all that sort of stuff, with various factions and armies that landed on this planet, were fighting it out, and then the planet plunged into the warp, and was somehow protected from the warp through the entity of some warp deity that we haven't heard of yet, something like a Slanesh or something, that surrounded these planets in protective crystal spheres from the warp phlogiston. And then at some point it pops out of the warp, the crystal sphere just goes, dissolves in normal space, and there's this new star system that's released back into the Warhammer 40k universe once again, and the first people to show up are Space Marines. Bad news, man. Planets full of Xenos and horrors and all sorts of things. They're just going to go down there, investigate, probably kill a lot of people, and then exterminate the place. Just burn it. So, yeah, not good. You're alone on Discord. Well, I was leaving, and then everybody asked me these really good questions. But, yeah. Piercer and Roper, the movie directed by Joss Whedon. No. Del Toro and Tarantino. I'm going to team up those two guys, and they're going to direct the Piercer and Roper movie. Quentin Tarantino and Guillermo del Toro will make the next D&D movie. How's that sound? Menzo Brands and Knights. I know, I'm a mad genius. Does anything survive contact with Warhammer 40k? No. Not wallets, not relationships, not your storage space in your house. No. Good luck getting Tarantino. Are you kidding, man? Sure. He would jump at the chance. I'd say, hey, Tarantino, here's something that you haven't done before. A fantasy movie. Remember Dusk Till Dawn? Okay, let's turn that up to 11. Yes, well, then you get psychers and stuff who are dealing with deities. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that the Warhammer 40k universe can deal with pretty much anything that the D&D universe starts throwing at them. Rifts. Oh, rifts. Rifts, Palladium books have been around for a very long time. Like, if you go back through the old issues of Dragon magazine, you can see that it was pretty advanced, even back in the day, when D&D was fairly, primitive looking, actually. Like, much less cohesive, whereas Rifts has always been a very cohesive megaversal system, where the one rule system combines all the different settings of the Rifts. So that was its selling point back then. Now, 5th edition, I'm happy to say, is kind of in the same boat. You can combine everything smoothly using Planescape and Spelljammer and, all the different settings of D&D. If you want to, you can have a Risk-esque game, a Rifts-esque game. Where you have interdimensional portals that open up, and essentially characters from Kryn and stuff can interact with the world of Mystara, or, Warhammer 40k is Lovecraft on all the drugs. It's like, take Lovecraft, add all of the guns, a huge dose of nihilism, and obsessive collections of miniatures, and there you go, Warhammer 40k. Quentin said he's only doing one more movie then retiring. I don't believe him. I have a problem with a player using sage advice over my ruling as a DM. Well, they're wrong, Avery. It's your game, your rules. Yeah, Aberia has been separated. It's on the other side of the star. At one point during the Time of Troubles, essentially that AO just separated the two worlds. And at one point there was a lessening of power which caused a mishap. And that was, I think it's got a lot to do with something the elves did to bring their extra dimensional plane in contact. It's complicated. Oh, Tarantino's not doing Star Trek now? Quentin Tarantino's been getting attacked by people in the US over stupid political crap. Well, I mean, he doesn't have to engage. He doesn't, like, he can sort of, I guess he could play the game, really. Or just not engage with them whatsoever. I mean, how many interviews have you seen with Guillermo del Toro? Who just doesn't, you know, maybe it's a language barrier thing, or maybe he's just busy. How many times have you seen interviews with Tim Burton, for instance? He's just as influential in movie stuff. How many interviews with M. Night Shyamalan? You know, I think maybe Quentin Tarantino just put himself out there a little bit too much. What's that? Any experiences playing a full campaign, probably a homebrew 1 to 20 and beyond with only one PC? Yeah. Tim Burton would probably make a pretty good Ravenloft campaign. Although, I don't know if he would take it really seriously. He does movies that are kind of fairy tales, in a way. Even his Batman movie was highly stylistic. Yeah, Dragon Turtle, I'd say that. Cause and effect. What do I think of the following of Bwim 2 on Discord? I haven't really paid a lot of attention to it, to be honest. Things happen in communities. Why does the community hate on Discovery so much? Here's my tip to you. Stay away from Twitter. Don't go to message boards. And if you like a show and you're really not interested in hearing negative comments about it, don't engage with people who talk negative about stuff that you like on, like, you know, media and things, because you can just sit back and enjoy Star Trek Discovery for its own merits and not get involved in politics and stuff like that people heap upon it. You know, it doesn't really benefit those shows overly much to get very political about them, because it's not reality. It's a sci-fi show. It's entertainment, you know. And yeah, if you want to see a show that certainly I've quite enjoyed over the last week, The Boys on Amazon with my man Carl Urban, good old Kiwi. I really enjoyed that show, so I definitely recommend it. Although it's quite gory and does have sexual themes and stuff like that. It's on Amazon. It's a pay-per-view, so it's no holds barred. I don't know how I helped because I don't know which specific setting has it. Ask AJ, and I still think this means Tiamat and Bahamut babies are both... What? Tim Burton in the Feywild. Yeah, that's more like it. Anything better than Discovery series. See, this is what I mean. I don't get you. Like, I like anything Star Wars. I like anything Star Trek. Anything. I don't care. I've enjoyed every single Star Trek and every single Star Wars thing I've ever seen. I am not negative about anything. I'm just appreciative of the fact that I'm a 46-year-old man and I'm still watching shows that I love on TV. Star Trek has been with me my entire life. Star Wars has been with me my entire life. And it's still going. I love it. All of my comic book characters that I read voraciously as a teenager, I've seen on the big screen now. Well, apart from a few. I'm still waiting for Wonder Man and Blue Beetle. And Blue Devil. You'd rather... Yeah, well, Del Toro, if you've seen... what is it? The one where there's the... it's the... Mexican? No. Spanish Revolution or something? And it's got the fawn. What's the name of that one? I've only watched it once because that was such a powerful movie by Del Toro that I've only ever watched it once, and I don't think I will ever watch it again because it was perfect. I don't know, that sounds weird. You don't watch TV? Yeah, I don't watch TV either, pretty much. I only watch streaming stuff. Pan's Labyrinth, there we go, thank you. Pan's Labyrinth, yeah. Fantastic. Hey, Egg Silver Radio. I've already said I don't have an opinion on the Cult of Whim 2 on Discord. Dragon Turtle. Blue Devils D&D stats. Man in a suit. Warhammer 40k versus Tarask. Warhammer 40k wins. Thrawn? Admiral Thrawn from Star Wars? Really like him. Because we saw him in the animated one. Was it Clone Wars? Or Rebels? I think it was Rebels. Is Rebels continuing? Have I missed it? Surely I must have some Rebels episodes to catch up on. So Thrawn's really cool because he's real smart. He's a tactical genius. You'd have to be really, really gifted and talented to be an alien in the human-centric empire because it's a species supremacist empire. See you later, Matt Nerdy. Yeah, so I'm going to take off as well, everybody. It has been a great 2-hour-long stream. Yeah, I'll have a great Sunday. I'll catch you guys next weekend. Back to Sunday for me or Saturday for you. This was an accidental Friday stream. But it's been great. A middle-aged farmer who joins the party to discover himself. Yeah. Resistance. Oh, okay, that makes sense. To Discord! I'll catch you later, everyone. Have a great evening, and I will have a good rest of the day.